Module 6. Hi, Joe Cerrone. I'm creating this video to lecture, or at least to talk about how to work with viewports. In Model 6, I have a PowerPoint presentation, Joe's PowerPoint, Chapter 6. And here it is. If we look at the PowerPoint, the PowerPoint ties into the Chapter 6 of the textbook. And see if I can get this to work. I'm not going to go and put it into this display mode because it splits the screen. Until I figure out how to use that technology, we're just going to go with this because I know it will work. So the learning objectives are basically to use these view tools and plotting. And so these would be under what I would consider called display commands. How do you change what you're looking at? What angle are you looking at it from? The top view, the right side view, an isometric view. And then with those views, are you setting up a scale in Paperspace? Do you understand how to work with viewports? Things like that. And there's also a number of other kind of cool things that you can do with AutoCAD that's one of the reasons it's used for everything. So if we look at things like using display commands transparently, control object display order, we can put things like photographs into drawings. And so, for example, like this is a aerial drawing, and it's just taken from Google Maps. And this is a company out in Des Plaines when we were working with the fire department, basically showing them where the fire hydrants were. But what's cool about it is that we can take photographs and put them into CAD drawings, set them up so that they're at a scale, and then do things like locate assets like fire hydrants, Knox boxes, locations of gas shutoffs and things like that. So there's some really cool things you can do when you start to work with AutoCAD. Alright, so the navigation bar, the view cube, basically it's just a little bit more graphical in 2020 versus older ways. If we go to AutoCAD and we look at the view cube, if we want to set it for the top view, we can just click on the top. If we want to click it to get it back to where it was, you can click on this little home command. You can choose to rotate the view by dragging this circular feature. You can pull other views like front views. So it's just another way to look at your models. And then we can also go in here and use the standard views. And I'm kind of old school. I still like the standard views over the view cube just because I can hit those in the exact same viewing position. We'll also take a look at the textbook. And so in the textbook, AutoCAD and its applications, it's basically Chapter 6. When we look at these different view tools, what we're looking at is working with these little navigation bars, where you can use what they call steering wheels, panning, zooming. AutoCAD has a product to sell, and every year they come out with a new release. At least they have been. The AutoCAD is going to be changing to a new format where it doesn't have release numbers, but they have you pay forever. In other words, you just lease the software. But anyway, for now, they would come out with a new viewing option every time they came out with a new release of AutoCAD. And so all of these commands are 2 or 3 different ways to do them, but essentially they're for viewing three-dimensional objects. Zooming. Okay, again, there's a number of different zoom commands that are available, but everybody uses the real-time zoom because if you have a mouse with a wheel on it, it's the best. It just works very well. Prior to that, and we did have mouses with wheels, but they were like 3-button mouses very often. Internet wasn't super into everything back when AutoCAD was developing. So they would come out with different commands like zoom extents, zoom window, zoom previous, zoom real time, zoom all. And so those different zoom commands just are different ways to change the viewing angle. I do use zoom all quite a bit because every once in a while what'll happen is I'll draw something and then for some reason I'll get what they call like space junk, like something like a mile away from this, and every time I zoom it's like really tiny. And so if you go with Z for zoom, A for all, you can just make sure that that's all the geometry that's displayed within the drawing. Now if a layer is off, it's not going to display it, so you need to have the layers on, but that's what I'll use zoom all, and so it would be like view, zoom, all. The other commands, view, zoom, there's just a number of different ways to do the same thing. You know, zoom extents, no difference. View, zoom, scale allows you to scale it to a certain percentage. So a lot of them just don't have the same oomph as real time. Real time works just fine. It's the wheel on your mouse. And so here's all these different zoom commands and how you use them, pan commands. I like the 3D orbit quite a bit. You can kind of visualize things from different angles. Here's our view cube. Here's a mechanical part. Controlling the draw order. I like this. This is really neat. You can insert a bitmapped image, you can scale it, and you can then draw on top of it by controlling the viewing order or the the draw order. And so um, that's another thing. Other times people will take products and they'll get them off the internet and they'll just trace over them so they get some basic idea of proportions. Named views allow you to name a view. So for example, if we come back into AutoCAD and I want to type in view, I'll get this view manager, and then what I could do is I could create a new view, and I could call this one, we'll just call it 1, and I'll say OK. And then if I go in here and I want to do another view, let's say I want a view of the close up like that, and come back here to view. I can say new, I'll call it 2, we'll call it nut, you know. And then once I have these views created, I can switch back and forth between them. So if I want to go back to 1, I say 1, set current, apply it, OK. And you can see now it's at view 1, nut, set current. And so it's really not so useful for mechanical drawings as it is for architectural, because you can have the entire building laid out and then you can set the views up and name them by room number. And so if you have a lot of people working on a facilities operation, you can use the view command for that. Model space viewports. The viewport command or the views command originated out of model space, and what it allows you to do is create things like top, front, right side, and isometric views within model space. And then you can work between these different viewports. And so if I come back here to AutoCAD, and I type in viewports, and it's viewports, then I can set up just like we had, 4 left, current, current, change this to 3D, top, front, right, isometric. And so you have these different views, and then in each view you can change things like visual style, okay? And so if I want top view not to be conceptual, You can change the visual style in there to 2D wireframe. Same with the front. Let's go with 2D wireframe. Whoops. We'll leave it at 3D hidden. Let's see what that looks like. And then let's just go with realistic here, or X-ray. And then we say OK. And this is where that money for the graphics card and your processor pay off. The more intense the graphics gets, the slower the system will go. And so, but you can see, here's the top view, and it's a 2D wireframe. Here's our front view and right side view. Paperspace viewports are created within the Paperspace title block. And so what it allows you to do is take something that's made in model space, a 3D model, in an infinite drafting environment, and then to capture, like in here, an isometric view and another isometric view. And they're in viewports. They're the same object, but it looks to me like what they did was they froze some of the geometry or turned off some of the geometry with viewport layering. And so you can kind of see how this kind of works. The title block is right here, and then you have a viewport, okay, which is created within the title block, and then it's kind of a window into model space. And so it's almost like a camera that's just displaying what's going on in model space. And so when we go into Paperspace, now I'm having trouble switching over, so I'm going to escape out. I'm not sure why I'm in it, and I'm going to type in tile mode, and I'm not sure if I'm frozen. So I'm back. I had a glitch with my computer. Tile mode is a way, T-I-L-E-M-O-D-E. Tile mode allows you to switch back and forth between Paperspace and model space, and this is the command structure for it. Everything has an icon now. You can do the same thing by clicking on this paper. Okay. There's floating model space, and then there's paper. Or you can go into the tile mode, type in 1, switches over to model space, and then we'll switch it back to Paperspace, tile mode 0. AutoCAD developers or computer programmers, they use binary. 1 means on, 0 means off. And so most of the commands are 1 on, 0 off. And then if we wanted to make viewports, what we would do here, for example, you can already have something here, and what you can do, typically I'll make these on the viewport layer. I'll say view, viewport, one viewport, and then you can just go and create another viewport within the Paperspace, double click in that viewport, and then you can go through and display whatever's there. And so you can go in here and you can set that up for just one of the models, click outside of it, and you can see it has difficulty when layers are overlapping. And so I just kind of did this way, but I was hoping that I would be able to grab the viewport itself and make it a little bit bigger, and it's giving me some difficulty. And so if I double click out into Paperspace, now I can get it. And so viewports are created in Paperspace, and so when you're in another viewport like this is called floating model space. And so it's the model space, but it floats in the viewport, floating here, floating here. Printing and plotting, there's a dialog box here. There's quite a bit to printing and plotting because the output on the paper can be really good with AutoCAD because they have these different plot styles which allow you to go and change colors, And so when we go into printing and plotting, batch plotting is, I don't know, I guess I should say don't show me, but what it does is it allows you to print these layout pages. And so you create books, assembly models, and so I could have a drawing with how to make the fasteners. I could have another drawing with the flanges. I could have another drawing with the nuts. And then I print it out as an assembly packet. And then they can get all the information they need from that drawing, and it's like a book. That's what this is. And so when we look at our printing and plotting, AutoCAD ties the printers to the drawing. And so here, print and plot, none. When you choose a printer, and so for example, if I choose this Brother printer that I have, it will give me the paper sizes that are available for that. And so I can do 11 by 17 on this 5720. It's a nice little printer for the price. And it does B size, but it will only give me the sizes of the paper that it will print on. And so I can choose my paper size. As far as the plot area, I could say plot the layout, and it'll plot everything in the paper space layout. Offset from origin, we can go into some of those other things, but they allow you to manipulate what's within the viewport. And then the plot styles, we typically use the AutoCAD plot styles, but if you click on this little button right here, this is where you can kind of tweak these plot styles. And so I may have a plot style for Oakton green because we have a lot of green and white and silver in our logos. And so marketing people tend to be very picky about the actual greenness. Okay, we used to have Signode green when I worked for Signode in Glenview, and it was kind of a forest green type of a color. If you saw one that was like bright green, you would know right away that that was a special order. And so the people who do the CAD management at those companies would set up the plot styles, and they would have like color number 3, Signode green, and they would make sure that it wasn't like this neon color. It would be more of like a forest green. And so you can get very picky about how the colors and things look on your output. And you can also set those up for paint colors too, like interior design, where you can actually have the numbers for the colors from Benjamin Moore, etc. Okay, once you get the settings for the plot set, say apply to layout, and what that'll do is it'll save that information, so every time you want to print that, you don't have to do that. I'm not going to send this to the printer, but that's basically how you go and set that up. And now if I want to print again, I can go to the plotter, continue with a single plot, and then if I want to preview it, okay, since I have it in the layout already, I can look at it and it's all set. I don't have to go back and tell it to do the layout or extents or zoom in on certain parts of it. Okay, so that's basically it for chapter 6, and this ends this video.